In a land long forgotten, where the snow lay thick upon the ground and darkness reigned for months at a time, in a small village nestled among the snow-capped mountains, Jólnir was born under the darkest of nights. In the hour of his birth, the sky was lit with a cascade of shooting stars, streaking like tears across the heavens. It is said that Sigrun herself witnessed the omen and prophesied that Jólnir would lead a life of both great sorrow and wondrous joy. Raised in a humble home, Jólnir learned the ways of the wind, the earth and fire. His father taught him the art of forging metal, and his mother, a weaver of dreams, showed him how to spin tales from the whispers of the wind. Jólnir grew into a tall, strong man with a heart full of laughter and hands skilled in the crafting of iron and words. As the years passed, Jólnir's fame as a storyteller and blacksmith spread far and wide. Folk from neighbouring villages travelled through the biting cold to hear him weave his tales of heroes and monsters, of love and betrayal. The fire of his forge became a beacon of warmth and light in the long winter nights, drawing people like moths to a flame. Despite his growing renown, Jólnir remained a humble and generous man. He forged iron gifts for the village children and shared his food with those less fortunate. The people loved him dearly, and he brought joy to their lives even in the depths of winter. But shadows lurked in the far corners of the world, and these shadows held a keen interest in Jólnir. For the frost giants, ancient beings of ice and darkness, saw in him a power that they desired for themselves. They believed that if they could bind Jólnir's spirit to their will, they could bring an endless winter to the world. One fateful night, as Jólnir worked late at his forge, a stranger appeared at the edge of the firelight. He was a small, crooked dwarf, with skin as dark as coal and eyes that glowed like embers. The stranger introduced himself as Alfur, a wandering dwarf who had heard tales of Jólnir's great deeds and sought to offer him a gift. In his gnarled hands, Alfur held a crafting hammer of exquisite beauty, forged from a metal that shimmered like the northern lights. He claimed that it held the power to shape iron as easily as clay and would never falter or break. Jólnir accepted the hammer and invited Alfur to stay with him for the night. Unbeknownst to Jólnir, the dwarf was an emissary of the frost giants, sent to bind Jólnir's spirit with the enchanted hammer. For each time the hammer struck the anvil, the enchantment would weave itself deeper into Jólnir's soul, until he was in thrall to the frost giants. Over the following weeks, Jólnir worked tirelessly with his new hammer, marvelling at its power and grace. As the enchantment began to take hold, his heart grew colder and his laughter more distant. The once kind Jólnir now forged chains of iron and despair, shackling his own spirit to the cruel will of the frost giants. The villagers began to notice the change in Jólnir. His stories no longer filled them with hope and warmth, but instead spoke of darkness and bitter winters. The children, who once flocked to his forge for his handmade gifts, now shivered and trembled as they passed by his cold hearth. As the enchantment continued to entwine itself around Jólnir's soul, the world around the village began to change. The snow grew deeper, the days grew shorter, and the cold seemed to seep into the bones of the earth. The villagers huddled around their hearths, whispering of the curse that had befallen their beloved Jólnir. Deep in the heart of the pine forest that surrounded the village, a wise old stag heard their whispers and felt the weight of their sorrow. This stag, known as Eldbrimir, was an ancient guardian spirit of the land. Realizing that a terrible darkness had come to claim Jólnir and his people, Eldbrimir decided to confront the frost giants and put an end to their wicked plot. With a great leap, the stag soared through the night sky, his hooves trailing fire behind them. He landed upon the highest peak of the frost giants' frozen realm and called out a challenge to their king.
"Lord of the frost giants, show yourself! Come down and face me!"
The frost giant king, a towering figure of ice and malice, emerged from his glacial palace. He laughed at Eldbrimir's boldness and demanded to know why the stag dared to trespass on his domain. Eldbrimir declared that he had come to free Jólnir from the chains of enchantment and to restore light and warmth to the world. The Frost Giant King scoffed at the challenge and proposed a wager. If Eldbrimir could melt the heart of ice that now bound Jólnir's spirit, he would release the captive soul and restore the balance of the seasons. But if Eldbrimir failed, he would surrender his own life and become the eternal servant of the frost giants. Eldbrimir accepted the wager without hesitation, for he knew that the fate of Jólnir and the world hung in the balance. He returned to the village and approached Jólnir's forge, where the once great man now toiled ceaselessly, his eyes hollow and his heart bound in chains. The stag spoke gently to Jólnir, reminding him of the love and warmth he had once brought to the world. He spoke of the children who had laughed and played in the light of his forge, and the hearts he had mended with his tales. As he spoke, the fire of the forge began to flicker and glow with renewed life, casting shadows of hope and fear across the icy walls of the smithy. Slowly, the ice that encased Jólnir's heart began to melt. The chains that bound him to the will of the frost giants weakened and fell away, releasing him from their cruel grip. As the last shackle shattered, the enchanted hammer that had been the instrument of his enslavement crumbled to dust. With his heart and spirit restored, Jólnir vowed to repay Eldbrimir for his selfless act. Together they forged a new hammer from the remnants of the enchanted one, a hammer imbued with the warmth of the forge and the steadfast loyalty of the stag. With this new hammer, Jólnir once again crafted gifts for the children of the village, bringing hope and joy to their lives in the darkest depths of winter. Jólnir became a symbol of light and warmth in the face of darkness and despair, a figure of hope and generosity in the face of adversity, and the tale of Jólnir and Eldbrimir, of darkness and light, of tragedy and wonder, spread far and wide across the land. The frost giants, thwarted in their ambitions, retreated to the farthest corners of the world, their wicked plans laid to rest. Each year, as the days grew shorter and the nights colder, Jólnir would don his warmest cloak, hitch his sled to the mighty Eldbrimir, and travel across the land, bringing gifts and joy to the children who waited for him with bated breath. And with each visit, the shadows of the frost giant's curse receded further into memory. The villagers, grateful for the return of their beloved Jólnir, celebrated the triumph over the frost giants by creating a festival in his honor. They called it Yule, a time of feasting, storytelling, and gift-giving, where the darkness of winter was pushed back by the light of hope and love. As the tradition spread, the tale of Jólnir became intertwined with the very fabric of Yule, a reminder of the power of kindness and the resilience of the human spirit. In the stillness of a winter's night, when the sky is streaked with the colors of the aurora and the world seems hushed in anticipation, you may still hear the distant sound of a blacksmith's hammer, the laughter of a kind-hearted man, and the hoofbeats of a noble stag, heralding the arrival of Jólnir and the triumph of warmth and light over the shadows of winter. And so, in a land long forgotten, where the snows lay heavy on the ground and the nights stretched long and dark, the legend of the Lord of Yule was born, a tale of darkness and light, of frost giants and a brave stag, of sorrow and wonder, and of the boundless love that can unite the hearts of all. This story still echoes through the ages.